Welcome back. Today's video is all about food preparation and batch cooking. I felt like this topic was worthy of a video of its own because these two things can be just so valuable when trying to maintain a healthy, balanced diet. Trying to keep up with the pace of everyday life can be challenging at the best of times. So even with the best of intentions, it can be hard to make healthy, satisfying meals on a daily basis. Preparing meals in advance can save so much time and ensure you have a healthy option available to you, removing the temptation to reach for less nutritious convenience foods. We've mentioned that batch cooking and freezing saves time, but it also can help to reduce your food waste, making the best use of the ingredients that you have. And it makes better use of your fuel, which means that you can have benefits to your health, to your pocket, and generally for the environment. This is a great tool not only for people who are busy with families or busy with work, but it can also be quite useful for people who maybe live alone and they find it a little demotivating to cook for one person. So I'm going to share a few tips for making the best use out of this method. I'm also going to share a few examples of the things which I batch cook. Firstly, I want to mention that I know people often worry that batch cooking can become a bit monotonous because they feel like they could be eating the same meal over and over again. So to avoid this, you can cook 6 or 7 different types of meals so that you've got different things to choose from and you can just reach for what you fancy at the time. Secondly, if you're somebody who doesn't like the idea of being stuck in a kitchen for a day or so cooking up loads of meals and you feel like this could put you off, instead of doing all your cooking in one lump, what you could do is just generally make extra portions when you cook a meal. So let's just say, for example, I was making a meal for 2 people. I could increase the portion size for 6 people. That way I have 4 extra portions that I could put away and freeze for later. Tip number 3, store your meals in preset portions. This also helps with keeping variety, because if you prepare it all in one big batch stored in one container, you would then need to take that all out, defrost it, and then you would need to finish the whole lot in one go. Whereas if you had a preset portion, you could just take out as much as you need for that meal and then choose something different the next time. This could also be useful in households where people have varying dietary requirements or generally just different tastes. The 4th tip is about containers. So generally glass containers and plastic containers work fine, but just check in advance that your containers are freezer safe, because if not, both kinds have the potential to crack. Personally, I really like the glass Pyrex type containers. I love those because they are not only freezer safe, but they're oven safe, they're microwave safe, they're just great all-rounders. For my 5th and final tip, I feel like I should mention that it's not just whole meals or snacks that you can freeze. I very often chop up things like onions, fruit, vegetables, so that I have those options pre-prepared in the freezer, so when I need them I can just take them out. And that cuts down your food preparation time dramatically. You can pre-prepare and freeze herbs, broths, sauces, baked goods. The options are endless. In the past, I was always a bit dubious about freezing things like cakes and pastries because I was always worried that they would go soggy once they've been defrosted. But the key to avoiding that is making sure that they're airtight when you freeze them. Also freezing them individually, and then once they've frozen, then you can pre-pack them in bigger bags. But if you throw them all in a big bag, they can often sort of freeze together or become a bit misshapen. That was kind of more like 2 tips in one, but hey. So now I'm going to share some examples of things which I have recently batch cooked and stored for later. I'm going to start by throwing in some crushed garlic. I will throw in some chopped courgettes and some chopped carrot. Just cook those until they soften. I'm then going to throw in some chopped pepper and some chopped mange trout. And again, soften that. I'm then going to throw in my chicken, which is already cooked. I'm then going to throw in my noodles, which have already been boiled. Mix that all together. I then throw in 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, some spring onion, a few chili flakes, 2 tablespoons of agave nectar, and then last but not least I throw in 5 tablespoons of light soy sauce. And then we just mix that all together. I now have a meal for this evening and I have plenty left over. Next recipe is from this book. It is Rosanna Davidson, Eat Yourself Beautiful. This is a really good book. I use it all the time. And I am going to make her coconut and quinoa curried lentil soup. As you can see, the recipe already serves 3 to 4 people, so I don't need to double or triple that.
By throwing in and warming up the coconut oil before adding in the onion, garlic and ginger. Then the curry powder, tomato puree, and some chili flakes. Then add in the chopped tomatoes. Then I've just added in here the lentils, the vegetable stock and the coconut milk. Now that just needs to come to the boil and then cook for about 30 minutes. Now, once that's cooked, you then throw in some spinach and some coriander. And lastly, once the quinoa is all cooked up and water is evaporated, then we can throw the quinoa in with the lentils.
And here are mine in their mason jars. I managed to squeeze 4 servings out of this recipe. Next up for batch cooking, we're going to make a hearty lasagna. The first thing we're going to do is throw a little bit of oil in a pot and heat it up. Once the oil is nice and hot, we're going to throw in some onions, celery and carrot. We will just cook those until softened. Step was to add the mince and brown it. Next steps is to add a tin of chopped tomatoes. Then after the tinned tomatoes, I've added 2 tablespoons of tomato puree and a bay leaf. The next thing to do is just mix that all up, cover and let it simmer for about half an hour. For the white sauce, you just heat a teaspoon of olive oil and then add in some plain flour. I instead am just going to use wholemeal flour, so just put that in and then you just warm that up until the oil is incorporated. Once that's done, it's time to add a mug of warm milk and you just add it in gradually. Once the milk is added in, you just keep stirring until you don't have any more lumps and cook until you have a thick white sauce. Now we have our 2 sauces made up. We're going to start layering the lasagna in the tray. You start by adding a layer of the tomato sauce and then topping that off with lasagna sheets. I use wholemeal ones.
And then you just continue on with that, adding a layer of tomato sauce, then a layer of pasta, then a layer of tomato sauce until the sauce is all used up.
So once the last layer of pasta was added on, I then added on top the white sauce, but then you top it off with quite a bit of parmesan. I usually use about 50 grams.
You can see the top layer looks a lot thicker, so now that just goes into a preheated oven at about 180 for roughly around an hour.
And there we are, all potted up. I managed to get about 6 portions out of this. So I usually just let everything cool down before I pot them up, and then once they're potted, they're usually ready to go in the fridge or the freezer. This one is a vegan option. These are potato and cauliflower curry. I haven't added rice to this just because it has potato in it, so I thought the rice might have been a bit overkill. But you can add rice if you need to. As I say, this is quite a good hearty vegan option. Smoothies are another thing which I batch make. I usually make 2 or 3 different kinds and then I'll sort of make 3 or 4 portions of each. I will start with half a frozen banana, a little bit of cocoa powder, some dates and some chia seed, then some almond milk and some spinach. Then that all gets whizzed together. Then they all get potted up and popped in the freezer. Thanks so much for watching. If there's anything you would like to see in the future, feel free to leave suggestions in the comments. If you found this helpful, stay tuned because I have plenty more to come.